Good evening, all. Hope this class finds you in the best of health and spirits. In today's session, we will study the second module of the development of gastrointestinal tract. The specific learning objectives of today's session are: first, we'll start with a recap of the derivatives of the foregut. Then we will see the development of stomach and its anomalies, and also the different changes occurring in the misandries of stomach. And related to that, we'll also try to see the derivatives of the dorsal and ventral mesogastrium. Then we'll go to the development of spleen and its anomalies, the development of duodenum along with its rotation, and finally we will see the development of liver, the extrahepatic biliary apparatus and their congenital anomalies. In the last class we have seen the derivatives of the foregut. To revise, these are the mouth and the pharynx, esophagus, stomach, duodenum up to the opening of bile duct. That means the first part and the second part of duodenum up to the opening of the bile duct. And the foregut also gives rise to the major digestive glands like the liver and the pancreas. In the last class, we have seen the development and anomalies of the esophagus, and in today's session, we'll try to see the development of the rest of the organs from the foregut. First, let us see about the development of the stomach in detail. The stomach begins its development from the foregut in the fourth week as a fusiform dilatation, which is in close proximity to the respiratory diverticulum in the primitive thoracic region. Growth to lengthen the esophageal region is essential for positioning the stomach in the abdominal cavity below the diaphragm. During the subsequent weeks, the appearance and the position of the stomach change greatly as a result of different rates of growth in the various regions of its wall, as well as changes in the position of the surrounding organs. The positional changes of the stomach are most easily explained by assuming that it rotates around a longitudinal axis and an antero-posterior axis. So during the development of the stomach rotates around a longitudinal axis and an antero-posterior axis. First, the stomach rotates 90-degree clockwise around its longitudinal axis, causing its left side to face anteriorly and its right side to face posteriorly. The stomach rotates 90-degree clockwise around a longitudinal axis so that its left side comes to face anteriorly and its right side comes to face posteriorly. Hence, the left vagus nerve, initially innervating the left side of the stomach, now innervates the anterior wall. Similarly, the right vagus nerve, which originally innervated the right side, now innervates the posterior wall. And during this rotation, the original posterior wall of the stomach grows faster than the anterior portion, thereby forming the two curvatures of the stomach, namely the greater and the lesser curvatures. The cephalic and the caudal ends of the stomach originally lie in the midline, but during further growth, the stomach rotates around an antero-posterior axis so that the caudal or the pyloric end moves to the right and upward, whereas the cephalic or the cardiac part moves to the left and slightly downwards. The stomach thus assumes its final position its axis running from above left to below right. In the last class, we have seen the stomach is attached to the dorsal body wall by the misandry, which is called as a dorsal mesogastrium, and to the ventral body wall by the misandry termed as the ventral mesogastrium. The stomach is attached to the dorsal body wall by the dorsal mesogastrium and the ventral body wall by the ventral mesogastrium. We have also seen that as the liver grows into the septum transversum, the mesoderm forming the ventral mesogastrium becomes thinner and gets divided into the two parts of the ventral misandry. The two parts of the ventral misandry thus formed are one, the lesser omentum, which connects the stomach to the liver, and the second is the falciform ligament, which connects the liver to the ventral body wall. So the two derivatives of the ventral misandry are the lesser omentum and the falciform ligament. And due to the rotation of the stomach as well as the disproportionate growth, the position of the dorsal and the ventral misandric connections is altered. Rotation about the longitudinal axis pulls the dorsal mesogastrium to the left, thus creating a space behind the stomach, which is called as the omental bursa or the lesser sac of peritoneum. And this rotation also pulls the lesser omentum to the right. So what happens is that the rotation of the stomach around its longitudinal axis pulls the dorsal mesogastrium to the left, creating a space or a recess behind the stomach called as the omental bursa or the lesser sac. So this rotation also pulls the lesser omentum to the right. Now we will see the derivatives of the dorsal and the ventral mesogastrium in a little bit of detail. First we will see about the dorsal mesogastrium. So as the process of the rotation of the stomach continues in the 5th week of development, the primordium of the spleen appears as a mesodermal proliferation or thickening between the two layers or the two leaves of the dorsal mesogastrium. So during the 5th week of development, the primordium of the spleen starts as a mesodermal proliferation between the two layers of the dorsal mesogastrium. With continued rotation of the stomach, this dorsal mesogastrium lengthens, and the portion between the spleen and the dorsal midline sinks to the left and becomes attached to the peritoneum of the posterior abdominal wall by a layer of fascia. Thus, the spleen becomes connected to the posterior body wall in the region of the left kidney by the lieno-renal reflection of the peritoneum. The spleen also becomes connected to the stomach by the gastrosplenic reflection. So the spleen becomes connected to the posterior body wall in the region of the left kidney by the lieno-renal ligament, and the spleen becomes connected to the stomach by the gastrosplenic ligament. The lengthening and attachment of the dorsal mesogastrium to the posterior body wall also determines the final position of the pancreas that we'll see in our subsequent class. As a result of rotation of the stomach around its antero-posterior axis, the dorsal mesogastrium also bulges down somewhat. So this bulging down of the dorsal mesogastrium continues to grow down and forms a double-layered sac extending over the transverse colon and the small intestinal loops just like an apron. So this double-layered apron-like fold is termed as the greater omentum. Later, its layers fuse to form a single sheet which hangs down from the greater curvature of the stomach. The posterior layer of the greater omentum also fuses with the misandry of the transverse colon. Thus, we have seen the derivatives of the dorsal mesogastrium include the lieno-renal ligament, the gastrosplenic ligament, and the greater omentum. Now we will study the derivatives of the ventral mesogastrium. As a result of the growth of the liver cords into the septum transversum, the ventral mesogastrium thins rapidly and forms the peritoneal covering of the liver. It also forms two other important structures which we have already seen, the falciform ligament and the lesser omentum. To revise, the falciform ligament extends from the liver to the ventral body wall, whereas the lesser omentum extends from the stomach and the proximal part of the duodenum to the liver. So the two important derivatives of the ventral mesogastrium are the falciform ligament and the lesser omentum. The free margin of the falciform ligament contains the left umbilical vein, which later gets obliterated to form the round ligament of the liver. It's also called as the ligamentum teres hepatis. This free margin of the lesser omentum connecting the duodenum and the liver is thickened to form the portal pedicle. And this portal pedicle contains three structures, namely the bile duct, portal vein, and the hepatic artery, which are termed as the portal triad. And this free margin of the lesser omentum also forms the roof of the epiploic foramen or the foramen of Winslow, which is an opening that connects the omental bursa or the lesser sac with the rest of the peritoneal cavity, that's the greater sac. This transverse section through the abdomen in the region of the stomach, liver, and the spleen helps you to identify the derivatives of the ventral and the dorsal mesogastrium. As you can see here, the two derivatives of the ventral mesogastrium are the lesser omentum and the falciform ligament, whereas the derivatives of the dorsal mesogastrium are the two ligaments, the lieno-renal ligament and the gastrosplenic ligament. Here it is mentioned as a gastrolineal ligament, but better it is termed as gastrosplenic ligament. And the third derivative of the dorsal mesogastrium is the greater omentum. This actual picture of the stomach will help you to identify the lesser omentum, which is a derivative of the ventral mesogastrium. You can see here the lesser omentum extends from the lesser curvature of the stomach and the proximal part of the duodenum to the liver. And the right free margin of this lesser omentum forms the roof of the epiploic foramen, that is the opening to the omental bursa or the lesser sac. And in this picture you can also identify the greater omentum, which hangs down from the greater curvature of the stomach. And as you have studied, the greater omentum is a derivative of the dorsal mesogastrium. Congenital hypertrophic pyloric stenosis is the most common congenital abnormality of the stomach. The pyloric stenosis occurs as a result of hypertrophy of the circular muscle and to a lesser degree of the longitudinal muscle in the region of the pylorus of the stomach. It usually presents 3 to 5 days after birth, and this condition is characterized by an extreme narrowing of the pyloric lumen, and the passage of food is obstructed, resulting in severe projectile vomiting. Now we'll take a quick look at the development of spleen. We have already studied that the spleen develops as a mesodermal proliferation between the layers of the dorsal mesogastrium. The spleen develops as a mesodermal proliferation or thickening between the layers of the dorsal mesogastrium. Initially, multiple mesodermal nodules are formed, which eventually fuse to form the spleen. And because of this reason, the spleen may be lobulated in the fetus. The most common congenital abnormality of development of spleen is accessory spleen. The accessory spleen is also called as spleniculae. An accessory spleen is a small nodule of splenic tissue found separate from the main body of spleen. Accessory spleens are usually found in approximately 10% of population and are typically around 1 centimeter in diameter. They may resemble a lymph node or a small spleen. They are medically significant in that they may result in interpretation errors in diagnostic imaging or continued symptoms after performing a therapeutic splenectomy. Polysplenia is a condition in which there is a presence of multiple accessory spleens rather than one normal spleen. The most common locations for accessory spleens are the hilum of the spleen. They are also seen commonly adjacent to the tail of the pancreas. They are also found along the splenic vessels, in the gastrosplenic ligament, lieno-renal ligament, and also in the walls of the stomach or the intestine, the pancreatic tail, the great omentum, and the mesentery, or it may be seen in the gonads or their path of the descent. Next, we will deal with the development of the duodenum. Before we go to the embryology of the duodenum, we will see something about the gross anatomy of this important structure. As you know, duodenum is the first of the 3 parts of the small intestine, the other 2 parts being jejunum and ileum. It is C-shaped and very closely related to the head of the pancreas. It usually consists of 4 sections or parts, namely superior, descending, horizontal, and ascending parts. It's about 25 to 30 centimeters long, and the extends from L1 to L3. The head of the pancreas lies within the C-shaped loop of the duodenum. The superior part lies intraperitoneally and is enlarged proximally to form the duodenal bulb. And this superior part of the duodenum is connected to the liver by the hepatoduodenal ligament, which is a part of the lesser omentum. The descending part and the rest of the duodenum are retroperitoneal. An important point to note regarding the duodenum is that the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct unite to form the hepatopancreatic ampulla of the waiter, which empties into the second or the descending part of the duodenum. At the opening, there is an elevation of the mucosa, which is called as the major duodenal papilla. The duodenum is developed from 2 sources, namely the terminal part of the foregut and the cephalic part of the midgut. So the duodenum is formed from the terminal part of the foregut and the cephalic part of the midgut. The junction of these two parts lies directly distal to the origin of the liver bud and is represented in the interior of the duodenum at the opening of the common bile duct. So the site of the opening of the common bile duct helps you to differentiate the parts of the duodenum which are developed from the foregut and the midgut. Because the foregut is supplied by the celiac artery, the part of the duodenum which is developed, that is the part proximal to the opening of the common bile duct, that is developed from foregut, is naturally supplied by celiac artery, which is the artery of the foregut, and the part of the duodenum which lies distal to the opening of the common bile duct and which is developed from the midgut, it's supplied by the superior mesenteric artery, which is the artery of the midgut. So the duodenum has got a dual arterial supply from the branches of the celiac artery and from the branches of the superior mesenteric artery. Now let us see about the rotation of the duodenum. As the stomach rotates, the duodenum takes the form of a C-shaped loop and rotates to the right side. So the duodenum rotates to the right side. This rotation of duodenum, together with the rapid growth of the head of the pancreas, which occupies the C-shaped concavity, sinks the duodenum from its initial midline position to the right side of the abdominal cavity. The pancreas and most of the duodenum become attached to the posterior body wall and becomes retroperitoneal. Only a small portion of the distal region of the duodenum, which is termed as the duodenal cap, retains an extension of the mesentery and remains unattached to the posterior body wall. Now we will take up the most important objective of this class, that is the development of the liver and also the development of the extrahepatic biliary apparatus. The description which is given here, it's slightly different from what is given in your embryology textbook, and you can follow this description for your examination purpose. The liver develops from an endodermal hepatic bud, and this endodermal hepatic bud arises from the ventral aspect of the distal part of the foregut. The ventral aspect of the distal part of the foregut, very close or almost at the junction of the foregut and the midgut. And this occurs during the middle of the third week of development. What happens later is that this particular hepatic bud grows into the ventral mesogastrium, which you have seen earlier, and through the ventral mesogastrium, it grows into the septum transversum. And the hepatic bud soon divides into two parts, a large cranial part, which is called as pars hepatica, and a small caudal part, which is termed as pars cystica. So the hepatic bud grows into the septum transversum and divides into pars hepatica and pars cystica. As the name suggests, the pars hepatica grows into the liver, whereas the pars cystica forms the gallbladder and the cystic duct. The part of the hepatic bud that is lying proximal to the pars cystica later on forms the common bile duct. The pars hepatica forms the liver, and the pars cystica forms the gallbladder and the cystic duct. We will see about the further development of the pars hepatica. The pars hepatica further on divides into the right and left parts that forms the right and left lobes of the liver respectively. As the right and left portions of the pars hepatica enlarge, they extend into the septum transversum. The cells arising from the right and left parts of the pars hepatica form interlacing hepatic cords or the cords of hepatocytes. What happens during this process is that the vitelline and the umbilical veins, which are present within the septum transversum, gets absorbed and gets broken down to form the liver sinusoids. The cells of the hepatic cords later on become radially arranged in the hepatic lobules. Because of the rapid enlargement, the liver occupies a major portion of the abdominal cavity, which forces the coils of the gut to herniate through the umbilicus, which forms a process called as the physiological herniation, which we'll see in our subsequent class. The oxygen-rich blood supply and the proliferation of the hematopoietic tissue are responsible for the massive enlargement of the liver during this stage. The bile canaliculi and the bile ductules inside the liver are formed in the liver parenchyma, and these establish connections with the extrahepatic biliary ducts at a later stage of development. Now we will study about the development of the extrahepatic biliary apparatus. The gallbladder and the cystic duct develop from the pars cystica. So it is a pars cystica that forms the gallbladder and the cystic duct. The bifid pars hepatica forms the common hepatic duct and also the right and the left hepatic ducts. And within the liver parenchyma, the right and left hepatic ducts they branch repeatedly the aqueous lumen and form the intrahepatic biliary passages. The part of the hepatic butt proximal to the pars cystica forms the common bile duct. So important to note that the common bile duct is formed from the part of the hepatic bud which lies proximal to the pars cystica. Initially, the common bile duct opens on the ventral aspect of the developing duodenum. But however, as a result of the further growth and rotation of the duodenum, the opening of the common bile duct is carried on to the dorsomedial aspect of the duodenum along with the ventral pancreatic butt. Now we'll see an interesting point regarding the development of the liver. The mesoderm on the surface of the liver forms a visceral peritoneum which covers the liver except on its cranial surface. And in this region, the liver remains in contact with the septum transversum. The surface of the liver that is in contact with the future diaphragm is never covered by peritoneum, and this area is represented as the bare area in the adult liver. You will study more about the bare area in your gross anatomy class on the liver. Coming to the congenital anomalies related to development of liver, the most common variations are those seen regarding the liver lobulation, but they are not much clinically significant. An important congenital anomaly of liver is called as a Riddle Slope. The Riddle Slope is a tongue-like extension, usually from the right lobe of the liver. It develops as an extension of the normal hepatic tissue from the inferior margin of the right lobe of the liver. Another rare but very serious congenital anomaly is the intrahepatic biliary atresia. Coming to the anomalies of gallbladder and bile ducts, there can be accessory hepatic ducts, extrahepatic biliary atresia. You can get an absence or even a duplication of the gallbladder. And the most common congenital anomaly related to the position of the gallbladder is called as a floating gallbladder. In this condition, the gallbladder is completely surrounded by peritoneum and attached to the liver by a fold of peritoneum or misandry. The two most common congenital anomalies related to the shape of the gallbladder are Phrygian cap and Hartmans pouch. The Phrygian cap occurs when the fundus of the gallbladder folds on itself to form a cap-like structure. The Phrygian cap occurs when the fundus of the gallbladder folds on itself to form a cap-like structure. The Hartmans pouch is a pouch formed when the posteromedial wall of the neck of the gallbladder projects downwards. This pouch may be adherent to the cystic duct or even to the common bile duct. A gallstone is usually lodged in this Hartmans pouch. Before we end the discussion on the development of the liver, we'll take a quick look at the derivatives of the ventral mesogastrium, which are somewhat important. As I already studied, the ventral mesogastrium extends from the lesser curvature of the stomach to the septum transversum and the anterior abdominal wall. And when the liver grows into the septum transversum, this ventral mesogastrium is divided into two parts. As you can see here, the part extending from the stomach to the liver is called as the lesser omentum, whereas the part extending between the liver and the anterior abdominal wall is called as the falciform ligament of the liver. These are the important assignments from this class. 1. Development of stomach. 2. The changes and the derivatives in the misandries of the stomach. That means you have to know the derivatives of the ventral mesogastrium as well as the derivatives of the dorsal mesogastrium. Number 3, you have to know the development of spleen along with the most common congenital anomalies of spleen. Number 4, the development and rotation of the duodenum. And most importantly, the development of the liver and the extrahepatic biliary apparatus. In our next class, we'll take up the development of the pancreas and also the development and the rotation of the midgut. Till then, stay positive and stay strong. Thank you.